podcast listener. If you're sick of playing small in life and want to transition to a bolder, better you, you're in the right place. I'm Kimberly Rich, and this is the Bold Life Movement Podcast. From business, money, marketing, and systems, to spirituality, self-love, creativity, and personal growth, each week, the Bold Life Movement will bring you inspiring stories from real people. Learn from successful entrepreneurs, innovators, best-selling authors, and creators, and leverage your own inner boldness to create an unconventional and truly rich life. Welcome back to episode 50 of the Bold Life Movement Podcast. We are closing out season 1 of the show with my friend and fellow lifestyle entrepreneur, Joel Runyon. Joel and I have been connected for a while now through an internet community called the Dynamite Circle, but it wasn't until we both held breakout sessions at this past year's World Domination Summit did we really get a chance to connect. Joel has actually traveled all over the world for his business, impossiblehq.com, which helps him to consistently push the limits of what is possible for his life, his body, his business, and his dreams, while also inspiring others to do the same. We bonded over our love of adventure and the fact that we both think you not only have the right to make your life incredible, but the prerogative to. Be sure to get all the awesome resources that we talk about in today's episode at theboldlifemovement.com/050. Without further ado, here to close out season 1 of the Bold Life Movement Podcast, please welcome the one and only Joel Runyon. Joel, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to catch up. It's always so much fun talking with you about all your adventures. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So I wanted to take us back just a little bit for anyone who's not super familiar with the Impossible brand. I think that you've had it for like 6 years now. Is that right?
Yeah. Wow. That makes it seem like a long time. Yeah, it's been
You
been like
old.
5. Yeah, I'm getting old. I was gonna say 5, but I think it's 5.5, 6, somewhere in there. So we're doing this call. I'm actually at my parents' house right now, which is apropos because that's where it started. I was in my parents' basement, and 9 months after I graduated college, and yeah, I'm just gonna dive into the story if you want me to dive in.
Yeah. Well, also,
Okay.
if you could finish off the story with what were the resources that you were looking at that got you into starting the business and that helped you do that?
So basically, 9 months after I graduated from school, I was unemployed. I'd been applying to a bunch of different places, did all the things you're supposed to do, and nothing was working out. It was 2009. It was not a great time to be a college grad, and just there weren't that many jobs out there. So I ended up applying to a bunch of different things. Worked at UPS for like a solid 3 weeks during the Christmas season. It was supposed to be 6, but the economy was so bad they only put us out there for 3. Got fired after Christmas, and basically ended up in my parents' basement, wondering what I'm doing with my life, and thinking like, this is it. I worked, I did all the things that you're supposed to do in college. Did extracurriculars, learned another language, got a double major, did all the things you're supposed to do, and this is what I got. And so I was not in a really great spot at that point. I kept telling myself, I was seeing different people do really cool stuff. Like just Sean Ogle, I think right around that time had just quit his job and moved to Thailand. Chris Guillebeau was, on 160 of his 193 country, around the world tour.
These were the people that inspired you back in the day?
Yeah, and I was reading these blogs, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. I'd like to quit my job and go to Thailand, where I can't even get a job.
Yeah.
I'd like to travel, but I don't have any money. I can't start my own business because I don't know anything about business. And was just feeling bad about myself, and was kind of writing down these things that I wanted to do, but really didn't think I could do it, and everything on the list seemed impossible. So
I want to pause you for 1 second. How did you find Chris and Sean? What were you searching online that you even stumbled upon their blogs?
Well, I think I found Chris from a travel, Matador Travel, because I wanted to travel after school, and I was into traveling, and so I think I found Matador Travel, and then I found Chris talking about it, and then I think I found Sean from Chris's site, and then I just kind of Chris at that point, it seemed such a gap, traveling over the world, like running these businesses, doing all these things.
Yeah.
And Sean, like, was about a year and a half ahead of me of where I was in the process. Like, I kind of paid attention to him when he started the site and what he was doing. And I was like, huh. And so I could relate to Sean. I could say, like, if Sean, I've told Sean this, I was like, you're the most realistic model for me, because I was like, if Sean could do it, I could do it. And
I'm sure you love that.
I mean, it's a compliment in the best way, because he was very he was very real on all of his stuff. He wasn't trying to make it sound like he made a ton of money before he did anything. He took a big risk in going to Thailand and taking a gig with Dan and Ian, and it was one of those things that I could actually relate to. And that was like, Chris had kind of like this idealized version. I was like, whoa, maybe someday. But like Sean was like that next step.
Yeah. So that's a trick for people who are listening, is to find an example or someone who inspires you that's like a year ahead of where you are, not 5 years.
Yeah, because at 5 years, because that was part of the problem. I was looking at Chris and some of these other people, and I was like, I don't even know how to get there. I can't even get a job, much less travel the world and run my own business and do all these things. And like, then I looked at Sean, and he had a job for a couple of years and then quit it and then moved to Thailand. I'm like, I could imagine getting a job and then quitting and doing something similar. So that was a really, really helpful like first model for me to look at.
Sweet. So if you could go back to the early days, or maybe not even that long ago, what would you do differently?
That's a good question. I would get a little more focused. A lot of times when I was first writing, I just kind of wrote about whatever I wanted to, and I still kind of do that. And that's kind of what's nice about Impossible, is that as long as I'm writing about the theme about pushing your limits, I can talk about fitness, I can talk about travel, I can talk about business, talk about it. I probably would have gotten a lot more traction and it works really well now that I have traction, but I would have gotten a lot more traction initially if I would have picked out something very, very specific.
Okay. Niching down.
And niche it down and really figure out my angle. But at the same point, I don't know if I knew enough then to even niche down into anything that would be valuable. I was still at the point where I had a business administration degree and a Spanish degree, and I knew how to install WordPress and then break it 12 times in a row. Like that was my extent of my knowledge. So I had to spend a lot of time just kind of like working on becoming a decent writer and working on learning how to use WordPress and knowing which edits I probably shouldn't make myself, because the whole website's going to go down or it's going to turn all white. And I'm like, I don't know what I did. And so it took me a while to kind of just suss out those skills. And it really, it was probably a year of just building the skills. And I spent 4 years in college, getting my degree. Like it should take some time to like learn online business and what it takes. And so I spent just a lot of time learning. And luckily I finally did get a job at an internet marketing company for about 18 months, where I didn't know very much about anything, but I knew I was interested in the internet, and I knew I was interested in marketing. And it
was a remote position?
I moved for it. I moved from Chicago to Indianapolis, upgraded from my parents' basement to my sister's couch, which is a nice upgrade at the time. Very much money for them at all, but basically used as an opportunity to learn a bunch of skills. So like Sean went and did his tropical MBA. I just went and did my Indianapolis MBA, where I
sexy.
The big takeaway from that was I didn't have any marketable skills at the time, and so I had to learn some. And what that position allowed me to do is I didn't make very much money, but I got to work at a very small company where I was in the boss's ear all the time, and I got to learn a ton of stuff in 18 months, where I went from basically entry level making like $1,500 a month, I want to say, not even that in the US, which is rough. And then working my way up to like a marketing director position, getting recruited to another agency, and then eventually quitting and doing my own thing. And that would not have happened if I would have gone into like this big conglomerate where you have to spend 2 years at one level before they bring you up to the next level, and then you spend 5 years there, and then they've got this structure. It was really, really useful for me to jump into a place where I had a little bit more control and could sacrifice a little bit of money now to learn skills, to build value, and to to demonstrate that I could be useful and actually worth paying some sort of money.
Yeah.
So,
Charlie Hone talks a lot about working for free. So much so that he has people banging down his door trying to work for free for him. He doesn't have any work to give away anymore. But I mean, I think there's something to be said about like targeting these smaller companies where you can get a lot of experience even if you're not making a lot, so that, a couple years, if that down the line, you can leave and do your own thing and you're much better equipped than if you were trying to get a high paying job at like a bigger company or a bigger agency. So totally agree with you on that. We talked a little bit about how you're focused on a lot of different things. So I know that you have a lot of different products and businesses all under the one umbrella, and I can relate. I have a lot of interests. But how do you manage that all? Like what sort of team members have been crucial to your success?
So for a while, it was just me and my brain and a few contractors. And one of the things that I've been focusing on this last year is really building out specific teams and having specific teams to handle specific functions, even to the fact where I had so I have my paleo business, or I have my Impossible business, and a lot of things I talk about there are fitness and mindset related. So we've done a couple fitness products, and out of those fitness products came up talk about paleo back 4 or 5 years ago, and I started getting all these questions about paleo, and so I ended up putting together this little site as like just a one-page Q&A on paleo, and it ended up getting a lot of traffic and blowing up, and long story short, turned into its own business. And for a long time, those were together under the Impossible umbrella.
Yeah.
And just this year, I split it out into its own entity, brought on a nutritionist to kind of run the site, have a customer service person that kind of handles it, and have been getting much better about being more explicit in what each business does, what needs to be done to run it, and who I need to take action on those tasks. And that was really crucial, because otherwise it would have been me just running it forever and running in this constant treadmill of trying to keep up with everything.
Yeah, it's so much.
And so that was huge. And we finally, there's a lot of systems and processes, documentation, Google Docs, spreadsheets, all sorts of stuff. But this year, basically, we finally have gotten to that point where that business runs on its own. And then, so to answer your question about team members and everything, I have a lot of contractors, but I'm working on investing in bringing on basically full-time team members. I have a nutritionist who helps run the paleo business. I have a customer service person who pretty much handles all the customer services across both different businesses. And then I have several different contractors depending on what the project is. So if it's WordPress, if it's app development, if it's design, we have a couple different people that we've worked with on a regular basis, either teams or agencies, to do that. But that's my goal here in the next year, is to start scaling that up, start building, investing a lot more into team members, both resources and my time and energy. Because at first, my first instinct was to treat them like I treat myself and say like, hey, here's the project, go figure it out and get it done. And I realized quickly that I need to be a better leader. I need to be a better, not even manager. I don't really like the term managing, because I'm not managing people, but really leading people and showing them what the vision for the business is, what the needs are, and where they can step up and fill those. And that's been the biggest shift in the business in the last 5 years, just because instead of committed to this cycle of me running everything and me being the center of everything, I'm starting to go from a manager to an owner, and that's a big shift.
Yeah, less in the business, more on the business. I love that. So last time I saw you, you were in Portland. Right before that, you'd been in Iceland. Right before that, you'd been on a boat, I think, in Croatia. So It goes without saying that you travel quite a bit. What has been a challenge with that sort of lifestyle?
Honestly, with the team members, it's syncing up call times and the time zones.
Not necessarily business related, maybe lifestyle related. Yeah, just what do you find challenging about that lifestyle?
The fitness stuff is the toughest piece. Finding, especially like around finding time, not even finding time, just making it a priority. after you get off a 12-hour flight and going to work out or going to do something
Yeah.
instead of just taking a nap. To me, that's the biggest thing. I tend to see my mind shift. Most of my life revolves around my fitness routine. My mindset deteriorates if my fitness routine is on point. My productivity plummets if I'm not taking care of myself. And I was in this place where, for a long time, I wanted to, I was just gonna sit down, drink a bunch of Red Bulls, and power through it. And if I'm not actively taking care of myself and actively uh, not just not even just working out, but like pushing myself in
Yeah.
workouts. Um, Other things in my life start and it doesn't like crash, but I start noticing I don't get as much stuff done. I don't have, my checklists get longer instead of shorter. My communication isn't as great. And so that's, I think, the toughest thing. And that's been really more of just a realignment of saying like, hey, this is the thing that I need to, that's kind of like my foundation block. And if I can get
Yeah.
that done, um, everything else figures itself out.
So obviously fitness is a big priority. Do you have any other habits or rituals that you have added to your life over the past 5 years?
Um, it's cliche, but I started meditating, and not in.
Heard of it?
First of all, I'm terrible at meditating. Second of all, I don't do like the whatever. Like I do like the calm body scans and breathing, and it's literally like 3 to 5 minutes in the middle of the day when I'm just like stressed out. I just sit
Yeah.
down. I'm gonna breathe. I'm not closing my eyes. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just like, and then like clear my head, clear my desk, and start back over. Um, that's been a big one. And then um, as far as routines and the team member aspect, regular communication with my team because um, when I first started, I was just like, go figure it out. You're great, awesome, and that's okay for some people, but it's not a team. It's really like it's treating people kind of like contractors. And as I've started to build a team that is not just people who are working on my projects as part of one of 8 things that they're doing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and focus on it full time. I've taken a lot more time to invest in them, both in phone calls and time,
Emotionally.
FaceTime with them, and spending more time with in the relational people aspect of business, and not just I want to sit in WordPress for 8 hours and bang out some words.
Do you guys use Slack to communicate?
Use Slack. We use a bunch of different stuff. Slack, WhatsApp, Skype, depending on what people are up to. But Slack is kind of like the default
Yeah.
if we don't have anything else. And then when people are traveling internationally, WhatsApp seems to be the thing to do on the go. I don't know how. Slack doesn't always play nice with my mobile phone, so
Oh, interesting. Okay.
we'll see.
So I want to know more about the impossible list.
Okay.
I was
What
looking
would you like
through
to know?
it. Where did you originally get that idea?
It was literally because I had a list of things I was watching other people do, and I was like, I wanted to do interesting stuff with my life,
Yeah,
and I sat
totally.
down and I kind of wrote these things out, and they all seemed impossible. It was like literally like travel the world, start my own business, do these things, and it started off pretty small. And one of the things on there, but I just spent a lot of time telling myself it was impossible. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. And then there was a point where I had written down run a triathlon, and I didn't know anything about triathlons at that point, but I thought they were kind of cool. I didn't even know what 3 sports were in it. It's running, biking, swimming. But I didn't know anything about it.
You
I've
just
never
knew
seen
3.
anybody. Yeah. I've never seen anybody do it. I'd never run more than a 5K at that point in my life. Um, and I just decided I was going to go out and try it because, hold on, excuse me. Oh, got a frog in my throat.
We can edit it
So
out.
I decided that there's reasons for me not to be able to do this other stuff. Like I don't have a bunch of money. I can't travel the world. I don't know how to start my own business. I can't do that. I can't quit my job because I can't get a job. But there's no excuse for me not to be able to train for a triathlon. I can put on my shoes. I can run around the block. I can get on my bike and ride around the block. I can jump in the pool and swim a bunch of laps. And so it was kind of this thing that just I didn't have any more excuses. So I decided I was going to do it. I was really scared about it, actually scared, and I did an indoor triathlon because to start because I didn't want to drown. And I was like, if I start drowning in the pool, I can stand up at least. So I did this triathlon and I trained for it and then I did it. And I remember specifically at the end of the triathlon, I was like, you spent so much time telling yourself this is impossible and you just did it. And if that's true, then how many other things out there that you're telling yourself are impossible are easily doable if you just put in the time, effort, training it requires. And that's where it started. And so it started off this small list, and a lot of people compare it to a bucket list. And sometimes if I'm short on time, I'll explain it like that to people. But the difference between an impossible list and a bucket list is an impossible list. A bucket list starts off, you sit down one day, you get all jazzed up, and then you write down all the things you want to do with your life. You try to cross them off before you die. Impossible list, it starts off as like a couple things. Start off at the one thing that you don't know if you can do and try to go do it. And once you do that, you start pushing your limits. You start going beyond
building confidence.
What you thought you could. And over time, that list gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's not a list of things that you're going to hopefully do before you die, but it's kind of a ever-expanding list of your limits and what you can go beyond. And that's kind of the idea behind the impossible list. And it's a really good metric. If I ever find myself bored, I just like, all right, is something on there that you haven't done yet? Like, you have no excuses to be bored or think things are too easy or whatever. There's always more to do.
I recently interviewed Michelle Poehler, who was at WDS when we were just there this past summer. And she's known for completing the 100 Days Without Fear. And
yes. Okay.
Yeah. And so I was super inspired by her and like created a whole list of things that I want to do that are, you know, pushing my comfort zone, things that will help me create a richer life. And so seeing your impossible list, I like it because I can kind of like pull from what she did, pull from what you did, pull from Sean Ogle's bucket list. You know, there's so many different variations and put my bold life spin on it. And I'm sure any listener can do the same thing. It's just a matter of like pushing yourself, making your life freaking interesting and worthwhile, and then tracking it.
Yep. And figure out the stuff that scares you and then go do it. So,
I love that. So what were some of the challenges that you've done or that you have yet to do that kind of stick out in your mind?
Well, the triathlon was the thing that got me started, and then I started running a lot more. One of the things on there that I remember doing, the first WDS, I wanted to go skydiving, but I was too scared to go skydiving, and I didn't want to go skydiving on my own. And so I decided that I was going to go skydiving at WDS, the first one, and it was like 500 people went to that event, but everybody was really jazzed up. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go skydiving at WDS. Who wants to come with me? And I thought I'd get like 3 other people, maybe, you know, like 3. But the idea was I would be the guy organizing it, so I couldn't back out.
Yeah,
like I forced myself into the plane and then just have to fall out.
So
and we ended up
that image scares me.
We ended up having 50 people sign up, and we took 50 people skydiving, and it was just a bunch of people who were like, I would not be here doing this if there weren't 49 other people out there. And that was crazy because skydiving is actually an intensive process. Like, it took us like 8 hours, I want to say, to get everybody, you know, like through everything. Yeah. But that was really cool. That was really fun. I did, a couple years ago, I did a couple years after I first started running triathlons, I ran a marathon, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm never going to run anything farther than that. And then, of course, I found out there was a thing called ultra marathons, which is farther than a marathon. So 3 or 4 years ago, I ran my first ultra marathon, and we raised a bunch of money for.
You ran an ultra?
I've done a couple now, yeah. So
I didn't know that. That's so far.
It's anything farther than 26.2. So I did my first ultra. We raised like $26,000 for Pencils of Promise, and then I launched the project, and then it went on pause, and then we're relaunching it now. But the 777 project, which is 7 ultra marathons on 7 continents, and we're going to build 7 schools with Pencils of Promise, and so we've got 2 of the races done. Got 5 more to go. Hopefully, finish by April, and then
You've done them? You're
I've done
doing
2 of them.
each one?
Yeah, I've done South America in Patagonia. I've done North America in Chicago.
Whoa. How far are
There's
you running?
so
I thought they were
Patagonia.
like 100 miles an ultra marathon.
So ultra marathons are anything farther than 26.2. So
Oh, okay.
the one I did in Chicago was a 50K, which is 31 miles. The one I did in Patagonia is it was like a 63 kilometer, which is like 40 miles. The one I'm going to do in Australia is a 12-hour race, so it's like you run as far as you can in 12 hours. Just go.
How long does a typical marathon take?
Uh, well, I mean, people run marathons anywhere between 2.5 hours to 4.5 hours. So,
Oh, okay. Whoa. So
but
12 hours, that's like a really long time.
yeah, and with ultras, you're running a lot slower. People might run a marathon at like an 8-minute clip. If you're running an ultra, you could do it at 8-minute clip. Some people do. Those guys are crazy.
I don't run a mile at 8 minutes.
But
What is this
if you
8-minute clip business?
yeah, I mean, if you slow down, you're looking at 10 to 12 somewhere in there over some of the longer stuff. But if you're going 100 miles and your pace definitely slows down quite a bit. But there's a bunch of different the races are all variant, and sometimes the longer ones that are flat are easier than the mountainous ones that are shorter. So the thing I like about ultras, and I don't even really like running very much, but the thing I like about
I would
ultras
never guess.
is that it takes you to a place. It takes you to 26.2, which is where most people stop, and then it says, "Okay, that was your warm up. What else you got?" And you just have to keep going. And there's not very many other sports out there that basically you need a pair of shoes, and you can just go and you can see what you're capable of, and see everybody hurts at some point. Everybody's tired. Everybody wants to go home and sit on their couch and eat a pizza, but you get to decide if you want to keep going or stop. And I always tell myself, you can slow down, you can walk, you can take a breather here, but you can't stop. You can't stop moving forward. And I always tell myself that when I'm running, and that's just like it's a really good thing to learn in the race, but it's better even more so if you can take that out of the race and apply it to your life. You can never stop moving forward. You keep pushing yourself even when you're tired. If you don't want to, you want to go home, you want to sleep, you want to eat a pizza, find the next limit, keep pushing past it, and then find the next one.
Totally.
And if you keep doing it enough, you find your second wind, you find your third wind, and you figure out how to just keep moving.
I did a Facebook Live this past weekend. Not
Yep.
this past weekend when this airs, but this past weekend when we're recording. And I was talking about my recent experience with ecstatic dance. And that was like my first exposure to it. And one of the comments I made was that, after 2 hours of very intense dancing, I want to stop. Like, I'm tired, I want to go sit down. And one of the takeaways was like, when I thought that I had nothing left, like, you find more. You just keep going. And just keep dancing. For anyone who's watching this on video. So I think that's an awesome takeaway. I have just a few more questions. But before we wrap up, I want to know, who are you listening to? What are you reading? Like, what's giving you the juice these days to feel inspired?
The juice.
I just made that up right now.
There you go. So Tropical MBA podcast, I'm always been a fan of. I've been a fan of them since I was back at my day job and trying to live vicariously through them. Wanting to go somewhere and travel, and now that they're friends, and I think that's a great podcast. It's very practical for people who are looking to start their own business and not make $1 billion. Like, what's this actually going to take?
Mm-hmm. That's the one that got me started as well.
Yeah. I've been getting into a lot of books on discipline and leadership. Jocko Willink he's a Navy SEAL. did like Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan, and then he has his own podcast, so it's Jocko Podcast. It's really good. He takes a lot of military lessons and pulls them out and uses them in real life. And then there's another book I just read called Living with a SEAL. A lot of Navy SEAL themes here.
Yeah.
But a guy, Jesse Itzler, invited this Navy SEAL ultramarathoner David Goggins to come live with him and train him for 30 days. And basically, David kicked Jesse's butt for 30 days and talks about like the mental toughness side of it and the perseverance and just sucking it up and doing it, even when you don't want to do it. So that stuff is kind of my bread and butter, because the motivation stuff is, I've written a lot about motivation being fleeting. It's not a super reliable fuel, and so if you could figure out how to get disciplined, how to create those routines, how to find those things that are your cornerstones and stick to them, and do them even when you don't want to do them, everything else starts to fall in place.
Awesome. Sweet. So before I ask my final questions, where should people go to follow you? What's the best site, social media handles?
Yeah. So impossiblehq.com is the main site. You can check out I mentioned some of our philanthropic stuff, but you can just check out impossible.org if you want to check that stuff out. And then you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Joel Runyon. So
awesome. Yeah, you're always posting really fun pictures. So I encourage people to go follow you.
It's good.
Super fun. Yeah, and I do want to acknowledge you for that. I feel like you have a lot of values that align with mine, and you've done a great job creating a very inspiring brand that has let you leave, corporate America, leave your sister's couch, and have an awesome, rich life. So I wanted to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So last two questions. I ask these at the end of every episode. It is the Bold Life movement, after all. What is your definition of leading a bold life or being bold?
So I like the idea of courage along with that. And, a lot of people try to, they talk about fear, and they talk about, I wish I could be fearless or whatever. It's not about not being scared. It's about doing it anyways and having the courage to stand up. And I think the hardest part about all of this is that, and this is kind of what shifted for me, was I spent a lot of my life kind of accepting what everybody else told me to do, like go to college, get a job, do this, do this, do this. And the hardest part, I think, that people have to break out of is have the courage to stand up and articulate what you want your life to look like. And if you can have the courage to be bold, if you will, and do that, you can shape your life to do whatever you want, and to be able to push your limits of what you thought you could do and do something impossible. So tying it all together.
See what you did there.
There you go.
So we talked about a lot of different interests and values that you have: fitness, pushing yourself, creating a life that suits you. What would you say is your underlying why behind everything that you do?
I've written about this actually, and my goal is to be spent. I just think it's really sad when you look back on your life and I've done this. I was an athlete growing up, and so you never want to get to the end of a game or end of a competition and think like, hey, I held back there. I could have done more, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want to be thinking, oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Like if I overdid it, like maybe that would be a regret, but I'd rather have that be the regret than be like, oh, I didn't do that because I was scared. And I think that's just like that. Like I even just think about that right now, I get like, it's just a horrible feeling, and I can't imagine what it's like to be like 85 and think that. So that's kind of that. I want to be spent. I want to leave it all out there.
I think you're doing a great job.
Trying.
Like you said, follow him on Instagram. You'll see. Well, Joel, thank you so much. It was really fun getting to chat. I always love hearing about your adventures, and hopefully I'll get to see you in person again soon.
Yeah, I will see you soon.
Awesome.
Bye.
And that's a wrap, guys. Thanks so much to Joel and to all 48 other guests who joined me this season on the Bold Life Movement. It has been such an incredible year, and I'm so grateful to you for tuning in each and every week. Since season 2 is only going to get better, I'd love to hear your feedback. In the show notes of today's episode, we'll include a link to a recent Facebook Live that I did, asking what you want to see and hear from this show in 2017. I hint at some of the ideas that I'm looking at, and I ask what you loved, what you liked, and what you'd suggest that we add for next year. Again, the show notes can be seen at theboldlifemovement.com/050. And if you haven't yet watched my video for creating achievable goals in 2017, then go ahead and hit up theboldlifemovement.com/2017. That's 2017. Happy New Year's, lots of hugs and love, and I'll see you in season 2 coming February 2017.